Welcome back. I am Chan the Tech Man, and I am going to do some reading in Uru Live. So I want to thank you for tuning in and being a part. Let's see if I get some sound. Yes, I am. It sounds good. I think I'm first going to do the cha-cha. Now I'm going to do the pellet drops and start some more. Now hair's wet, so I've tried these little earbuds. I can't find my old other earbuds that I use. Don't know why. I think I threw them away, but you never know. And make sure, capturing audio. Wish there was a faster way to do this. After the first time, it wouldn't go through all that, but it is what it is. Nobody's online. What was that? As soon as I said that, I hear noise. I don't know what it was, though. Let me check and see. And I believe that was a Facebook noise, because I left that open. Getting a little better at this. You wait on this at least until that drops. Then I think you should be good. did on this one, I tried out a new setting where the hardware encoder instead of software encoder. Just kind of testing different things out on the Streamlabs. Which, to tell you the truth, they're both are hardware. CPU is hardware. But, so far it's doing pretty good. I guess they mean hardware, they mean GPU. They should say that. Is it software? Calling it software is not exactly accurate. Because the CPU is a piece of hardware. Okay, you set that. And let's go do some reading. I might revisit Myst 5 again to look around more thoroughly at Myst Island if I can. I don't know if I can go back to that or not. I might. If I have to redo the complete game, I won't. It'll be a while. I'm assuming that other, but let me see. Yeah, I wanted to make sure. We'll read to this spot here. I don't see anybody else here. Okay, that's the correct spot. I want to try to go over there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7. Tijara took the throne in 3219 at the age of 114, though his father was considered to be an extremely decent and honorable man, especially in his later years. Tijara didn't follow in those footsteps. It is said that he was an intelligent man, but that he used that intelligence and cleverness for his own personal gain throughout his life. In fact, rumors say that Tijara succeeded rather well at convincing his own father that he was the perfect choice for the throne, when most believed that one of his two younger brothers would have done much more for his people than he ever did. And Benz, I do not need those headphones. I am going to take, these don't stay in that well. So I'm going to take those out, turn the volume down, and read. You all can still hear it, but I will not be able to. And he ever did. If there was one thing that seemed to direct Tijara's reign, it was personal gain. He was known as a masterful pretender long after his death, while those who saw through his lies during his reign were few and far between. He was a pretender long after his. Due to Tijara's nature, there is not much good that can be said about his time and the throne. Should be, I would. They say in a lot of those, but I would say on the throne. But it could be in. I don't know. The place underwent a major renovation in 3271, and in 3279 the Writers Guild presented Tijara with the King's Age, one of the most beautiful and amazing ages that had been written up to that point. It was later discovered that Tijara had ordered the age written by two writers who eventually died of mysterious illnesses after their work was done. Tijara was married officially to one woman, although there were many rumors of multiple other companions. As it turned out, Tijara was also known within his inner circle to be an extremely jealous man, especially of his wife and the other women in his life. Kind of controlling, isn't he? That's stupid. He was jealous, but he was seeing multiple women, but he didn't want all of them to see anybody else. I don't like this feller. In 3285, Tijara's oldest brother was imprisoned for the creation of illicit ages, a crime he vehemently denied through the time of his imprisonment. Tijara expressed great sorrow at the sentencing, although it was later learned, well after Tijara's death, that the crime had been set up as punishment for what Tijara had received as lustful looks from his brother. In 3295, a guild master of the Guild of Miners was killed in a freak accident while inspecting the progress of new tunnels. Again, it was later learned that Tijara ordered the man killed due to a relationship he had many years earlier with one of Tijara's lovers, long before Tijara had met her. Boy, this guy's a piece of crap. Though Tijara's reign was viewed as fairly repulsive by most, it is important to note that for the first time in their history, the people of Dini remained strong and focused even under the leadership of a poor king. The words and teachings of Tivar stayed in their hearts, and they focused on their personal lives, and if they had pleased, and they were pleasing to Yahweh more than their king. If there is anything good to be said about Tijara, it is that he did not destroy the fragile condition of his people. Religion was not important to him, and thus, though he never did anything to encourage his people one way or another, he did nothing to prevent those who wished to believe a certain way from doing so. Tijara died in 3422 at the age of 317 and left the throne to his third son. Though Tijara claimed that the boy was born to his wife, there was quite a few rumors that the boy was actually the first son of one of Tijara's younger maidens. The rumor was never proved either way, as both his wife and the maiden passed away 2 years after the boy was born. Though officially Tijara had 3 sons, it's possible that he actually fathered 12 sons and 7 daughters, an exorbitant number for a Dini. Excerpts from the Grand Master Jaran of the Guild of Writers Private Journal. From the Lost Son, written by the prophetess blah 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 in 3422. Grand Master Tijara's Private Journal, from the Lasting Impact, written by the grandson of Tivar Elam in 3576. It should be noted that most of these facts were not public information until long after Dejar's death. For the most part, the Dini honestly believed that Dejar had been a decent king, though he began to judge the reign. The son began to judge the reign of Dejar by his son. It was not until much later, when truths were revealed, that the public's opinion of Dejar truly changed. And let's go over here to this next one. And do the AFK. TML. TML took the throne in 3422 at the young age of 39. Like his father, TML, his major concern was personal pleasure. Unlike his father, he seemed to be not clearly as clever as hiding his true intentions from his people. In spite of TML's inability to lead, a few worthwhile historic events were carried out during his reign. First was the construction of Stone Eater in 3469, though TML really had nothing to do with the Guild of Miners' first colossal tunneling machine. He claimed quite a bit of the credit at its christening. Grandmaster Naaman of the Guild of Masters who did spearhead the effort, was irate at the lack of mention of his own name during the speech and made his thoughts public in the days that followed. Like his father, TML carried out retaliation with quite a few different relations with quite a few different women besides his wife Shema, who he married in 3477. Unlike his father, it was said of TML that these women, including his wife, much more easily persuaded him. Public opinion clearly believed that Shema was a rather incredible woman, while she stayed with him through his entire life, even though his well-publicized affairs was not as clear. So why she stayed with him through his whole life, even though his public affairs were publicized, it wasn't clear. Some said she used TML and the marriage for her benefit, and she definitely had his ear. Others said it was because she was a faithful follower of Yahweh and believed that the promise she had made to him was not meant to be broken. It's probably that she was a follower of Yahweh. I wouldn't think the other. Regardless, it seems clear that Shema, even if it was the other, I mean, she would be justified of doing so because of how he was doing to her. But it's probably the second one. Regardless, it seems clear that Shema was an intelligent woman who, though it was never stated publicly, for all practical purposes, held the throne from 3477 on. And if she did do the first one, it was the best for everyone, because obviously TML was an idiot, didn't know how to rule. So either way, it was best for her to run it. In 3500, women became eligible for a minor guild education, though there had been women participation in the minor guilds before that point, actresses, etc. They had never been officially recognized as members of those guilds, though there was a push to allow women to join the major guilds as well as the minor. Shema herself gave a strong case not to allow such an event to happen in 3523. She strongly disagreed with women being in governmental positions, and seemingly ironic view, as she was basically king of Dini at the time of her speech. I don't know. Maybe she wanted to get by with being in charge because obviously she needed to be. Maybe that's why she did. I don't know. Or maybe she didn't like other females. I don't know. Because of how her husband was seeing all these females, maybe she just kind of didn't trust other females. I don't know. That could be the case. It could have affected her opinion. Regardless, she argued that women had much more important duties, including the guiding of children, to push for such allowances seemed to fade away in the years following her speech. In 3574, Shema gave birth to Tiamal's first son, at least that the public knew of. For the remaining years of Tiamal's reign, Shema focused on raising of her son, whom she vowed would not be the same kind of man as his father. I hope he isn't. A daughter was born 30 years later, and Shema raised her with equal resolve. Again, though the people were not led well, they remained strong in their beliefs and purposes, somewhat ignoring the bad leadership of Tiamal and instead focusing on the high example of his wife. Tiamal passed away from an unknown disease in 3654 at the age of 271, giving the throne to his firstborn son. Written by the prophetess in private journals from Shema, written in Leyland in 3890. Shema's words were spoken to the council as their debate whether or not to allow women into major guilds. From the lasting impact written by the grandson of Tivar, let's see. Oops. I don't know, you can't use the arrows when got two red, and let's go AFK. King Kadri. This is short. Good. Kadri took the throne in 3654 at the age of 80. Kadri himself was seen by many as a testament to the type of woman his mother had been. The day of Kadri's coronation was the proudest moment of Shema's life. She often said, up until the day she passed away in 3689, whether or not they agreed with Kadri's decision, it seems most did. There was seemingly hardly a single Dini who did not greatly respect and care for Kadri. He was a king for the people, and most historians agreed was the most popular king of Dini history, besides the Great King. Kadri led a number of small proposals that often benefited the lower class. At the same time, it seems he assured the higher classes that the proposals were the right thing to do. Up to that point, the island had basically been set aside for the elite. It was Kadri who established the district of Shamathan, later changed to Kurathian, as a more affordable residential district. Kadri also donated his own Age of the Kings, written during the reign of his grandfather, to the Common Library. He directed money to massive renovation projects throughout Dini, including further additions to the Great Temple, the Opera House, and further renovations to Bellari. The deteriorating district of Rakiri had started years earlier. And the numerous I don't know what, I guess that's what that meant. In the numerous books and journals written about Kadri, it is said that he often walked the streets of Denny and attended events with the rest of his people, and though he were as though he were one of them. He married in 686 at a public ceremony that was open to all who wished to attend. As one writer said of the event, if you did not want to be there, you did not want to be Denny. Kadri eventually passed away in 3903 at the age of 329, leaving the throne to his firstborn son. Deteriorating. I think that's why I thought deteriorating district. That doesn't make sense, though. Let's go and read the next one. Four more. What did it say? Just pooped in for a minute? Just popped. It would be funny if it was a typo. Not too long. Le Michel took the throne in 3903 at the age of 100. Le Michel had been fairly involved in the minor guild of actors, although it was said that what especially interested Le Michel was illusion. Up to that point, there had been a few different magic clubs, although nothing official. So in 3961, Le Michel, with quite a bit of trouble, forced the establishment of the Minor Guild of Illusionists. It was not a guild that most found necessary, but Le Michel argued that neither of was the guild of actors, painters, or musicians. It was entertainment, of which illusion was a valid form. Ironically, it was later discovered that the establishment of the guild was an illusion in itself. While the guild was debated, Le Michel established an undercover intelligence force to keep track of the more dangerous factions and subgroups of Denny. Check this microphone. And everything is going good. And they were a highly secretive group of which the public had little or no knowledge until years later. And so, with the confirmation of the Guild of Illusionists, the Rayama, literally translated the unseen, were also established. Though the previous few kings had been fairly focused on Denny and establishing their own culture and territory, Le Michel again looked towards the outside cultures in a manner that had not been seen since Hinash. In 3975, he remarried, as his first wife had passed away at a young age, to an outsider, unlike Hinash, who had also married an outsider. Le Michel and his new wife bore a son, his first 20 years later in 3995, and another son in 4014. For the first time, the Denny were truly confronted with their views on outside cultures, and the arguments were said to have started with as soon as Le Michel's son was born, and to whether or not he would be allowed to someday rule as king. Unfortunately, though, Le Michel led quite a few efforts to supply better lives for other cultures, along with freer trade and sharing of resources with other ages. The remaining years of his reign were dominated by whether or not his son would be allowed to reign. To Lamechel's credit, though he could have forced his will concerning his son upon his people, he never did. If his son were to eventually reign, he said it will only be over a people who want him to. In 4030, the council decided that a king had to be of pure Dini blood. Lamechel signed the decision into law the following year. When he died in 4083, he left the throne to the youngest child of his first cousin, whose mother had been the younger sister of his father, Kadri. Taken from the speech of the council arguing for the establishment of the guild, Lamechel did not need council approval to establish the guild. Though many kings prefer council approval, it was said later that Lamechel purposely wanted the debate to take place as a distraction. Three more. King Ishak took the throne in 4083 at the age of 85. His grandmother had been Shema, and of Ishak it was often said that he ran his throne almost exactly as his uncle Kadri had. He was another of the people's king and refused to separate himself from his people or view himself at a higher level than those he served. It seems a king with such an attitude was hard to not like, and his popularity was close to that of Kadri's. Like Lamechel, he focused on the involvement of non-Dini and their importance to the Dini culture and expansion. His powerful words of equality between the Dini and non-Dini were truly put to the test in 4103. Ishak and his wife had been touring a food facility ran by natives at the age of Yemesh. As it turns out, the party was ambushed, and Ishak's wife was taken by a group of natives who managed, using Dini linking books, to easily escape before Ishak or his guards could react. As word leaked out of the event, the words uncivilized and primitive were used to describe those of the other worlds in a way that had not been used since the Pinto War. Ishak fought the people's new perception and argued that not all outside cultures should be judged on a few radicals. His words, however, were seen as empty by much of the public as he waited for word of his wife. Word finally came. The Yemesh wanted their own worlds to rule as they felt the Dini ruled them. They had specific demands for the kind of worlds, many of which were impossible, as they had no concept of the art of writing. Unless they were given the three worlds they demanded, Ishak was to be executed. Many view Ishak's wife was to be executed, not Ishak. Many viewed Ishak as a faithful study of history, and in particular the Pinto War, because of his knowledge of history and his belief in the integrity of the Yemesh. He was fairly convinced that it was not the Yemesh who wanted the books, but some small faction of Dini who was directing them. Rumors say that he was even fairly convinced of the particular faction that was doing it. As was the case with the Pinto War, it had not been the Pinto who were to blame, but the judges who had wrongly sought power. Given Eshek's apparent distrust of some within his own people more than those who were not Deni, he had been a strong supporter of the Relima. As it turned out, it was their information that saved him. There were a number of groups who felt as though Deni should be completely sealed from the other cultures. One in particular had been especially vocal in their opinions, especially while Eshek's wife had been held captive, using the tragedy to further their own cause. It was to this group Eshek apparently directed the Relima, ordered them to uncover any information they could. 3 days later, Eshek sent out word that he had no intention of giving the Yemas the worlds they had asked for. Hours later, Relima informants followed 2 members of the faction Eshek had suspected to an illegal age where his wife was imprisoned. Once the public received word that it had once again been their own people directing the operation, records indicate that they were greatly dismayed. Plans were uncovered that indicated the factions was to kill his wife, no matter whether the ages were given or not, to only prove further that outsiders could not be trusted. In fact, it seems as though the public was quickly learning that it was their own blood who could not be trusted. As Renerif and the great king had often said, it was a great power they had been entrusted with, and it is our own hearts that must be watched, a temptation too great to be resisted without strict rules or willing hearts. Check the streams. As a result, there was a great push for more strict guidelines for interaction with other ages, as well as rules for the ages themselves. They sought the rules not because other cultures were savages, but because our own culture could not be trusted to deal with them honorably. Eshek passed away in 4299 at the age of 293, leaving the debates to his firstborn son. Taken from the City Guard records, taken from transcripts of Grandmaster Jakin's Vigila Rider's speech to Eshek. Depending on sources, 2 different groups are credited with the kidnapping, although Relima's records indicate that it was a group known as Blood of Yavo. Other records indicate it was a group known as Light of Deni. Taken from book 1 of the Great King, from how they came, a detailed look at what started the Medish War by Jamin, written in 7201. 2 more in this section. I'm going to do the AFK. King Loshim King Loshamanesh, took the throne in 4291 at the age of 123. Though Loshamanesh's reign was relatively short, it was believed he made the most of the years he was given. Loshamanesh had seen firsthand the effects of too much interaction with other cultures, and because of that, held firmly to his views, disagreeing with what was becoming the majority view in Delhi. He often pointed out, as his father also had, that before the Pinto War, strict regulations had existed on interaction with other cultures, and it did nothing to stop the judges from their writings. Loshamanesh himself stated, those who wish to take advantage of outside ages and peoples cannot be stopped, must first be listened to within Delhi, not forced to take such extreme measures. When extreme measures are taken, the consequences must be increased. In 4305, law was passed stating the creation or trading of illicit ages was punishable by permanent imprisonment on solitary prison ages, a fate that some said was worse than death. In 4307, Loshamanesh passed Burley, another law stating that any Delhi who coerced an outsider to commit a crime, no matter what the crime, was punishable by permanent imprisonment. While the laws were passed, Loshamanesh encouraged further interaction with the other cultures, while continuing to argue interaction itself was not the problem. However, it seems as though many failed to see his stance and still pushed for stricter measures on the Guild of Writers and the complete sealing off of any interaction with outsiders. In 4334, the age of Trashish, a major mining age, was halfway destroyed because of the mistake of a native running Delhi machines that had been established there. Families were forced to evacuate, and in one particular odd case, supposedly a child was born while the mother had been linking from Trashish back to Delhi. Regardless, the destruction of the age was another case of argument for those who wished to seal themselves off in a case that Loshamanesh argued could have happened regardless of who was running the machine. Sadly, in 4438, Loshamanesh was assassinated by the same faction who had kidnapped his mother years earlier, making his life an example of what he had often preached. It was the Delhi who had to change. If they did not, he had argued, problems would always exist. He's right, whether or not outsiders were involved. He left the throne to the firstborn son of his younger brother, as he had no children of his own. Taken from the public speech explaining his signing of the law. One more reading in this session. King Jai. I hope this is not too long, though. It is. Jai took the throne in 4438 at the very young age of 36. A combination of an apparently immature and weak king, along with the tension that was growing within Delhi over the outsiders and religious principles, went down in history as a bad one. At the start of his reign, government records say Jai was overtaken with his new palace life and the luxuries it afforded him. He seemed much more concerned with what kind of food he would be served for breakfast than whether or not Delhi should pull back all of its people who were living in outside ages, as some were suggesting, wrote one anonymous author. Because of his apparent lack of concern over the real issues, it was the Grand Master who quickly became the most frustrated with Jai. It was said by a few Grand Masters in private journals that Jai would wholeheartedly agree with them while they presented their strategies and plans, and then disagree with their challengers. Then agree with their challengers an hour later. The indecision by Jai made for little evidence of progress and complete frustration for most of Denny. For the first time in many years, the signs of division began to appear as they had during the 2500s. The once unified religious beliefs showed signs of splitting. The once unified classes began to separate into rich and poor, and the once confident rulers of worlds began to wonder whether they could even rule themselves. Adding to the confusion were the words of the Watcher. The Watcher, as he had come to be called, was the child who had been born between ages and now rumors said had the ability to see beyond time, past, present, and future. In 4500, he wrote words, a 625-line volume describing his visions of Denny. Much of the book dealt with the great destruction of Denny that would one day occur and the signs that would come with that destruction. Many claimed that the book was seizing upon the chaos of the day and dismissed it as rubbish, while others seemed to be rather intrigued. I already read that in the Complete Chronicles. I encourage you to go back and watch that playlist. Also, in 4500, Grand Master Kenneth of the Guild of Legislators brought forth a proposal that would allow the use of private education separate from the guilds, although many seemed frustrated of the idea, as education and the guilds had always been thought of as inseparable. The proposal eventually passed by a slim margin. Jai seemingly had little to say on the proposal one way or the other. Jai was married in 4502 to Melaine, a woman who had been married 3 previous times. It was Jai's first, and the prophetess advising him had strongly spoken against it. The marriage lasted 25 years before ending and marked the first time any king had divorced one of his wives. Jai remarried in 4565 to a woman 100 years younger, something culturally accepted. It was the rumors that she was the daughter of the Watcher that created problems. She denied the claims, but did show quite a bit of interest in his writings and convinced Jai to do the same. The marriage lasted until 4564, when Jai's wife vanished. Some say outsiders had taken her, since nothing had been resolved concerning them. Others said Jai murdered her, and others said she had returned to her father, the Watcher, even though the Watcher died in 4607. Jai's final wife was one of his own prophetesses who had sought for he had sought for advice, marking another first for a king. The two were married until Jai's death in 4692. He left the throne to the third son of a close friend. He was 290 years old. To sum up Jai's reign, one author wrote, There was a collective sigh of relief throughout the cavern on that day he finally left us. As spoken by Kenneth during the debate of the Council 4500, it seems private education never really received near the admiration or respect from the public and thus never truly succeeded. Common among those still wanting more strict guidelines pertaining to outside involvement. One of Jai's gardeners claimed he witnessed the murder with his own eyes. So she probably was murdered. Though the watcher was believed to have died in 4606, there were numerous rumors of people claiming to have seen him and talked to him, taken from a recently discovered manuscript that was apparently never published. Okay, take a screenshot of what I have read in this section. And thank you for tuning in. And remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll get notified when I become live. And like this video and like my others and watch those. And remember, my website is chansmith.me. It's CHANSMITH.me. I encourage you to go there. And there's a link to my YouTube page if you want to find it and share it with others, or my YouTube channel, or you can find it on YouTube. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, then you know my YouTube channel, and I encourage you to share it and get other people to subscribe and get into the comments and live chats and stuff. And I want to thank you for tuning in and being a part. Until next time.